problem number 3 now. We're going to write a program to calculate the sum of numbers from m to n. We already wrote a program just to calculate the sum of the first 10 numbers, so this is only slightly different from that. What we need to do is we need to get the numbers m and n, right? Normally we get information from our user. So let's define then input variables. M is the start value. We're going to assume that n is the stop value. And let's note that the program assumes n or m. M is always less than n. Right. So let's go ahead and declare m and n. We could give these better names such as start and stop. Right. We'll stick with what the problem statement said for right now. All right, we're going to get this information from our user. Let's just go ahead and print out a message to the user and say, enter start number. And we could also let the user know what's program calculates the sum of the numbers from m to n. Now puts stands for put string. It's like printf. You just fill it with a string and it automatically appends a new line character. And maybe instead of saying enter start number, maybe we'll just say enter m here. Now let me just comment this out and let's just build and run this much. All right, so I'm getting some warnings about unused variables. Not really worried about that. Oh, multiple definition of main. I left another file in here. That did give me an error, so let me remove the old file from the project. Let me just build and run again. All right, I just wanted you to see, if you haven't seen puts before, what puts does is just writes out everything within the double quotes. Remember, the double quotes form a string of characters. And then automatically appends a new line character. We can't add in new line characters here, escape sequences. So you can add in the same escape sequences here that you use with printf. So if I wanted 2 new lines at the end, if I wanted a new line at the beginning and then 2 blank lines, sorry, I had to stop the old one. Let's rerun it. Let's rebuild it. And now I get a blank line before the start and 2 after. All right, so now I'm letting the user know what the program does. Now we can prompt the user. So we can put in a comment that says, display message telling the user what the program or the program's purpose, telling the user the program's purpose. Now I'm heavily commenting simply because as new programmers, you should be putting some messages in here telling yourself the purpose of what you're doing. It will make it easier later when you go back and look at your programs to immediately know what you were doing in your program without having to try to decipher your code. All right, so we're going to prompt user for input. Right, if we give the user a message, it's much nicer. And then scan, we're going to use scanf to read in. Now I declare this as an int, so %d, and we're storing that in the address of m. Similarly, we'll do the same thing and enter n. Set D because n is an integer as well. Remember, scanf requires the address. And now we have our input. What we're doing is, again, as we noted, our program is going to assume that the user always enters m as a number that's less than n. We're also assuming that when we read information from the keyboard, it's read correctly. Right? We're just working with some basic things here that we want to work on. So we make some assumptions like this. We can always write error checking into our code later. Right, so now that should give us our input. So what we want to do now is we want to, calculate the sum of numbers from m to n. We're going to need a summation variable to do that. And normally we declare all of our variables at the top of the file. All right, calculation variables. Sum, right, stores sum of m to n. Right. Sum is also going to be an integer since m and m are an integer. I'm assuming that m and m are going to be relatively small numbers and that sum will be large enough as an integer data type to store the value of the sum. But we need to initialize that to 0. All right, so now that we've initialized this to 0, we can write this with a while loop. We can say while m is less than n, and I can say sum equals sum plus m, right? We're including this. And if I want, I can just go ahead and increment m, right? If I don't need to save m to use elsewhere in my program, I'll just add 1 m every time through the loop to calculate the sum. And then we probably want to let the user know what the sum is. So here's our output section, right? Display sum. So I can say sum. Maybe I want a new line, make things look nicer. Oh, %d, right, for the sum, then a new line, then the sum variable. Right, let's do a run cursor here. All right, so now we're sitting here. Right, I didn't run the cursor down here, but our program, before it can get there, our program has to go ahead and get values for m and n. All right. And so now I'm prompted to, right, so if m were 1 and n was 5, then it went ahead and read this in. Notice m has 1, n has 5, sum's been initialized to 0. We're going to loop through, right? What we're going to do is the loop is, I've broken the problem down into a step that every time through the loop, it should just add m to sum. Right? Broken it down into that small unit of work. So next line, right? We can see now adds m to sum, stores it back in sum. We increment m, right? Again, what happened before is we check this test condition. While this test condition was true, you can see that we go into the body of the loop. So, or m is 2, so 2 is going to be less than n. So we're going to go through here. Now, what happens when m is 4, so that's going to be added in, but now when m is 5, it's going to fail this test. So notice we didn't add that value of 5 in here. And if we want to include 5 in here, because we said sum the numbers from n to n, probably want to include 5, it's important what our test condition is. So we need to change the test condition to while m is less than or equal to n when we want to include n in the sum. We have to rebuild again. If I do a build and run, right, this pops up. If I say 1, 5, our sum is 15, and that's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. We can see that by stepping through here. Right. Run the cursor. Again, I have to enter 1, 5. Right, now we're down here. Right. Next line. It checks this test, so it's going to say, well, 1's less than or equal to 5. That's true. It's going to add this into sum. M will be added to sum, stored back in sum. Notice sum's changing. We're going to increment M. Right. And you can see we're walking through the loop again. M is incrementing. Sum is being incremented as well, or M is being added into sum. And now when M is 5, well, it will be less than or equal to N. So we'll go through this loop one more time so we can add that ending value of 5 in here. And then we go down and display our sum. Like I said, it didn't matter, right, that we changed the value of M if we don't need to use the original value of M again anywhere in our program. If you do want to use the original value of M somewhere again in your program, then you probably need to create another variable and assign it that value of M. That's how we can do it with a while loop. We can also do this, we could do this with a for loop as well, but it almost makes more sense to do it with a while loop since we're incrementing M. All right. So I'm going to stop the debugger. I'm going to comment out this. All right. I'm using a for loop, and I'm going to use M. I don't need to initialize M. It already has a value. So I can just put a semicolon there, and then I can say M less than or equal to N plus M. So in here, we just say sum. I accidentally type something up there. Copy, paste. We put this very same statement in here. So each loop performs the same important action of adding 1 to the sum each time through the loop. We're incrementing M in each loop. Here we're doing it, here in the for statement. Here we're doing it within the body of the while loop. And notice because M already had an initial value, I didn't need to initialize it here in the for loop. Because remember, whatever statement we have here happens first, happens once and only once at the start of the loop. Well, there's nothing we have to do, but syntactically, we have to put the semicolon in here. And the semicolon, right, and C is a legal statement. It's a null statement, a no operation statement that basically says we'll do nothing. If we want to use a for loop and stay within the appropriate syntax, we actually have to do this, right? And if we just build and run this, right, and we give this 1 for M, 5 for N, we get our same sum. All right. So that's how we can just simply sum the numbers from M to N, right? If you want to as a challenge for yourself, we made the assumption that the program always assumes M is less than N. You could add some error checking into this program, right, to try and deal with the fact that what happens if somebody enters a number M that's greater than N. Because right now, let's just run this, right? We made that as an assumption, and that's fine. We're just learning about loops, and it's fine to make these assumptions here. But we can see the behavior of our program. If I entered a 5 here for M and a 1 for N, our sum is going to be 0 because it's going to fail at this test condition, right? Immediately through here, M won't be less than or equal to N. Statements in the body of the loop won't execute. We'll just print out 0. Right. Like I said, it's okay to make those assumptions because what we're trying to work on right now is just understanding how to do some basic functions, write some programs with loops. As I said, you can add a challenge to yourself to try and do some error checking and decide how you would handle a case where m is less than or equal to n.